used to believe that forgiveness was a weakness, that it belonged to people who were afraid to face pain head on, people who chose comfort over truth. For most of his life, Mark carried his anger like armor, heavy, familiar, and always close to his skin. It protected him from disappointment, or so he thought. But armor, when worn too long, begins to crush the one inside it. The first betrayal came quietly. It was his father who left without a farewell one cold autumn morning, leaving behind an empty chair at the kitchen table and a silence that never truly went away. Mark was 17, old enough to understand what abandonment meant, young enough to believe it was his fault. His mother tried to explain, tried to soften the truth, but Mark had already built a wall inside his chest. People leave, he learned, and when they do, they take something with them. Years passed. Mark grew older, stronger, more successful. He learned how to smile without opening his heart. He learned how to love carefully, conditionally, always ready to step back before someone could hurt him. Forgiveness never entered his vocabulary. He believed forgetting was safer than healing. Then he met Emma. She wasn't loud or dramatic. She didn't demand attention. She simply existed, calmly, warmly, like sunlight slipping through a half-open window. They met in a small bookstore on a rainy afternoon. Mark reached for the same book she did, their fingers brushing for half a second longer than necessary. "Sorry," she said, smiling. "No, it's fine," he replied, surprised by how his chest tightened. They started talking about books, about life, about small, unimportant things that somehow felt deeply important. With Emma, conversations didn't feel like battles or performances. They felt like rest. For the first time in years, Mark let himself believe that maybe some things didn't have to end in loss. Their love grew slowly, carefully, like something fragile but determined. Late-night walks, shared coffee cups, laughter in quiet kitchens. Emma saw him in ways he wasn't used to being seen. Not as strong or distant or unbreakable, but as human. "You don't talk about your past much," she once said softly. "There's nothing worth talking about," Mark replied. She didn't argue. She never pushed. And somehow that made him trust her even more. But wounds that are ignored do not disappear. One evening, everything shattered. Mark came home early and found Emma sitting on the couch, her hands shaking, her eyes red. She confessed through tears, not an affair, but a betrayal of trust, a secret she had hidden, a choice she had made out of fear, not malice. Mark felt the old rage rise instantly. The familiar voice inside him whispered, "This is it. They always leave. They always hurt you." He didn't yell. He didn't cry. He simply walked out. Days passed in silence. Emma sent messages, apologizing, explaining, begging for a chance to talk. Mark ignored them all. Forgiveness once again felt impossible. Why should he be the one to carry the pain while others walked away lighter? But the anger didn't bring peace. At night, Mark replayed their memories. Emma's laughter, the way she looked at him when she thought he wasn't watching, the gentle patience with which she loved him. And slowly, painfully, another realization surfaced. He wasn't angry only at her. He was angry at his father, at himself, at the years he had spent punishing others for a wound they didn't cause. Forgiveness, he began to understand, wasn't about excusing the hurt. It was about refusing to let the hurt decide who you become. Mark returned to the old neighborhood where he grew up. He stood outside his childhood home, now quiet and unfamiliar. For the first time, he allowed himself to feel the grief he had buried for decades. He cried, not quietly, not neatly, but fully. That night, he wrote a letter to his father, not to send, just to release. And the next morning, he called Emma. They met in the same bookstore where everything had begun. She looked tired, fragile, afraid to hope. Mark took a deep breath. "I don't know if I can forget," he said honestly, "but I want to learn how to forgive." Tears streamed down her face. She didn't promise perfection. She didn't make excuses. She simply reached for his hand, and this time he didn't pull away. Forgiveness didn't fix everything overnight. There were hard conversations, moments of doubt, long silences filled with fear. But there was also honesty and choice and love that grew deeper because it had survived pain instead of running from it. Mark learned that forgiveness doesn't erase scars. It teaches you how to live with them without bleeding. Years later, when Mark looked back, he didn't see a man who was never hurt. He saw a man who chose love over bitterness, connection over isolation, healing over pride. And in forgiving others, he finally forgave himself.